Hi there once again. I am Steve. I hope you all have been enjoying my movie reviews I've been doing, Back to the Future that I did. So let's move on to something different this time. Let's do a movie which is from 1990 to be exact. It's a comedy film. I haven't really, I didn't really see it a lot like in the 90s. I think I may have seen it probably in the late 90s or something, like 98 or 99, but I really didn't watch it a lot. Not till like 2003 or some year or four when I watched it like a little bit more. But when I saw this movie, I'm like, this has got a pretty good story to it, and got a nice uh, actress in it, good actor as well. I never really thought, when I saw this movie, no, I didn't think, it'd be like to my liking or anything. I just think it was like more of a girls' film or something like that. But not really. It is. The movie is Pretty Woman. This is a movie that stars Julia Roberts and Richard Gere. Yeah, this is pretty much like it's a romantic comedy film filmed in Los Angeles. As it says here, its story centers on a down on her luck Hollywood hooker, Vivian Ward, who was hired by Edward Lewis, a wealthy businessman, to be his escort for several business and social functions, and their developing relationship over the course of her week-long stay with him. All right, so let's get right into this, to the plot. I do own this like on DVD, like the anniversary edition. That's pretty much it. Don't have it on VHS. I think I might have before, but don't have it anymore. Just DVD. So there you go. So anyway, Edward Lewis, played by Richard Gere, a successful workaholic businessman and corporate raider in Los Angeles on business, accidentally takes a detour on Hollywood Boulevard while looking for Beverly Hills. He unsuccessfully tries to ask for directions and ends up in the red light district, where he encounters a sex worker named Vivian Ward, played by Julia Roberts, who mistakes him for a possible client. Her roommate and best friend Kit DeLuca, played by Lauren San Giacomo, encourages her to recruit him, though he only wants directions, and makes a deal with her to pay her if she shows him the way. Intrigued by her knowledge and wit, he hires her to spend the night with him for $300 in the hotel's penthouse apartment, treating her to strawberries and champagne and sharing personal information with her. He comes to trust her as she surprises him by flossing her teeth after eating the strawberries and not doing drugs as he thought she was more likely to do given her profession. They spend the night watching I Love Lucy reruns and having sex. The morning after, Edward hires Vivian to stay with him for a week as an escort for social events. She advises him that it will cost him, and he agrees to pay her $3,000 and gives her money and access to his credit cards to buy suitable, elegant clothing. She then goes shopping on Rodeo Drive, only to be snubbed by saleswomen who disclaim her because of her unsophisticated and overly sexual appearance. Because she has like a t-shirt on, and it shows her stomach, and she has high heel boots on and like a short skirt as well. Initially, hotel manager Barney Thompson, played by Hector Elizondo, yeah, is also somewhat hostile towards her, but slowly relents and instead helps her find a dress, and even coaches her on dinner etiquette. Edward returns and is visibly amazed by her transformation. The business dinner does not end well, however, with Edward making clear his intention to dismantle James Morse's corporation once it was bought, close down the shipyard, which Morse had spent 40 years building, and sell the land for real estate. Morse and his grandson David abandon their dinner in anger, while Edward remains preoccupied with the deal afterward. Back at the hotel, he reveals to Vivian that he had not spoken to his recently deceased father for 14 and a half years. She attempts to cheer him up, but he rebuffs her and leaves. Later that night, lonesome and worried, she goes looking for him and tries again to console him, and they end up having sex on the grand piano in the hotel lounge. Great scene. The next morning, Edward asks Vivian about her buying only one dress, and she, upset, tells him about the snubbing that took place the day before. He takes her to a store where he makes sure that the staff will indulge her. He leaves her with money and his credit cards as she goes on a shopping spree. Now wearing very elegant clothes, Vivian returns carrying all the bags to the shop that had snubbed her, telling the saleswoman that they made a big mistake and announcing nonchalantly that she has to go shopping now, leaving them speechless. The following day, Edward takes Vivian to a polo match he sponsors in hopes of networking for his business deal. She meets some of his snooty upper-class friends and tells him that she understands why he came looking for her. While she chats with David Morse, who is there playing polo, Philip Stuckey, played by Jason Alexander, Edward's attorney, begins to suspect that she is a spy. Edward reassures him by telling him how they met and that she is, in fact, a sex worker. And Philip approaches her and offers to hire her once she is finished with Edward, insulting her. When they return to the hotel, she is furious with Edward for telling Philip about her and plans to leave, but he apologizes, confessing his jealousy toward David, and persuades her to see out the week. He, elated, leaves work early the next day to take her on a date to the opera in San Francisco in his private jet. Vivian is moved to tears by the opera, which is La Traviata. I don't really listen to opera that much. Whose plot deals with a rich man tragically falling in love with a courtesan. Clearly growing closer, they later play chess, and she convinces him to take the next day off. It's a little bit long, so just bear with me. Now I'm just giving the whole story of it. They spend the next day entirely together, talking and enjoying each other's company. During the night, Vivian breaks her no kissing on the mouth rule, and they end up making love for the very first time. Just before she falls asleep in his arms, and she admits that she's in love with him, over breakfast the next day, he offers to put her up in an apartment so she can be off the streets, but she rejects it, insulting and says that this is not the fairy tale she wants. Telling him a story of her childhood fantasy, he then goes off to work with resolving the situation. Kit, collecting money from her, comes to the hotel and realizes that she is in love with Edward. She reluctantly encourages Vivian to pursue a relationship with him. In the meantime, Edward meets with Morse and is about to close the deal, but changes his mind at the last minute. His time with Vivian has shown him another way of living and working, taking time off and enjoying activities he never cared for. As a result, his strong interest towards his business is put aside. He decides that he would rather help Morse than take over his company. Morse still has his Navy contracts that could make his company a lot richer, and Edward bluffed a little. The contracts were delayed, not destroyed. With those Navy contracts, Edward 10 million shares of the company he owns. They will build big ships together. That was Edward's dream, to build things instead of tearing them down. Furious over the loss of so much money, Philip goes to the hotel to confront Edward, but finds only Vivian. He blames her for changing Edward and tries to grope her. She bites his hand to make him stop, and a furious Philip slaps and tries to rape her. Edward arrives in time to stop him, hitting him while chastising him for his greed and and throws him out. Edward tends to Vivian and tries to persuade her to stay with him because she wants to, not because he's paying her, but she refuses once again and returns to the apartment she shared with Kit. Preparing to leave for San Francisco to earn a GED with his business trip done, Edward packs and gets ready to head back to New York. He pauses in the lobby and asks Barney to return the jewelry that Vivian wore on their date to the opera. He states that it must be hard letting go of something so beautiful, and informs Edward that the limo's chauffeur drove Vivian home the day before. He gets into the car with the chauffeur, but instead of going to the airport, he goes to her apartment, arriving with music from La Traviata. He climbs up the fire escape, despite his fear of heights, with a bouquet of roses clenched between his teeth to woo her. Edward leaping from the white limo and then climbing the fire escape is a visual urban metaphor for the knight on a white horse rescuing the princess from the tower. The childhood fantasy Vivian told him about. The film ends as they kiss passionately on the fire escape. They declare their love to each other. And there you go. And also in this movie is Ralph Bellamy, plays Mr. James Morse, also in another movie called Trading Places. Jason Alexander, as we mentioned. You probably remember him from Seinfeld and the Kentucky Fried Chicken commercials like in the late 90s. John David Carson as Mr. Mark Roth, businessman in Edward's office. Let's see. Laura Sand as the girl we mentioned as Kit. Alex Hyde White as Mr. David Morse. Amy Yazbek as Elizabeth, the wife of Philip. Who else? I already mentioned him. Eleanor Donahue as Bridget, friend of Barney Thompson, the lady in there. Judith Baldwin as Susan, one of Edward's ex-girlfriends. James Patrick Stewart as the Day bellhop. Day Young as the snobby saleswoman in the dress store, and Larry Miller as Mr. Hollister, another one of the salesmen there, also from the movie The Night Professor and Night Professor 2. This movie also features Hank Azaria in his first speaking role, playing a detective early in the movie. He also plays Apu in The Simpsons. Now, we also have in here, we have the casting of the film, and it says was a rather lengthy process that was also directed by Gary Marshall, just to mention. Marshall had initially considered Christopher Reeve, Daniel Day-Lewis, and Denzel Washington for the roles of Lewis. Honestly, in my opinion, Denzel Washington, I don't think would have worked right. I mean, just don't really think, that just don't really think it would have worked out. Daniel Day-Lewis, he's an English guy, though, but still, I don't think that would have worked out. Christopher Reeve, I think, would have been a pretty good choice, but don't know exactly what he was doing, like in 1990, because he said in 1990 he starred in the Civil War film The Rose and the Jackal, in which he played Alan Pinkerton, the head of President Lincoln's new Secret Service. And not long after that, his wife Dana gave birth to William Elliott Will Reeve on June 7th, 1992. So I guess he's pretty much... hold on a sec. Yeah, so I guess he was pretty much was busy at that time, I guess. So there you go. But I think Christopher Reeve would have been a pretty good choice. I mean, he's just as good an actor as Richard Gere is as well. And Al Pacino turned it down. Al Pacino, I don't really know about that. I mean, he probably would have been okay, I guess. Pacino went as far as doing a casting reading with Roberts before rejecting the part. Gere agreed to the project. Reportedly, Gere started off much more active in his role, but Gary Marshall took him aside and said, "No, no, 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 Richard. In this movie, in this movie, one of you moves and one of you does not. Guess which one you are." Julia Roberts was not the first choice for the role of Vivian and was not wanted by Disney. Many other actresses were considered at the time. Marshall originally envisioned Karen Allen. I don't really know exactly what she's known for. It just says she played Marion Ravenwood in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Well, there you go. And The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull in 2008. Yeah, I really don't know about that. I just think, Julia Roberts was definitely a better choice. Trying to think, like, who else? When she declined it, it went to many better-known actresses of the time, including Molly Ringwald, who turned it down because she felt uncomfortable with the content of the script and did not like the idea of playing a sex worker. Interesting. Winona Ryder auditioned, but was turned down because Marshall felt she was too young. Yeah, man, she was like 19 at that time in 1990, at least, or 19 or 18 at least. I mean, she may have been 18, but yeah, I kind of agree with that. Jennifer Connelly was also dismissed for the same reasons. Yeah, she was like still a teenager, I think. Yeah, she was. Meg Ryan, who was the top choice of Marshall's, turned it down, according to a note written by Marshall. Meg Ryan, well, good actress, but did not do that. Mary Steenburgen was the first choice to play Vivian. That might have been pretty well as well, but she was like already in her late 30s, like 37 or so. Okay, let's see. No, there's more on here. I'm just like going through the list. Diane Lane came very closely to being cast as Vivian. I don't really know about that. I really don't. Which had a much darker script at the time, but due to scheduling, was unable to take the role. They had gone as far as costume fittings with Lane. Michelle Pfeiffer turned the role down as well because she did not like the tone of the script. Daryl Hannah was also considered, but turned the role down because she believed it was degrading to women. Valeria Galliano, something like that, also turned it down, as she did not think the movie could work with her thick Italian accent. Maybe. Jennifer Jason Leigh had auditioned for the part. When all the other actresses turned down the role, 21-year-old Julia Roberts, who was relatively unknown at the time, with the exception of the sleeper hit Mystic Pizza in 1988, and later her Oscar-nominated performance in Steel Magnolias. One role of Vivian, her performance made her a star. Indeed it did. And not only that, this is another good movie as well, like the other movies I reviewed too, because I like the story. I mean, Julia Roberts is a great actress. Richard Gere is a good actor. They would like do another movie like later in the years, like was kind of like a sequel to Pretty Woman, but not really exactly. It was called Runaway Bride. I've seen like a little bit of that movie, but honestly, Pretty Woman beats Runaway Bride by a landslide, in my opinion. But, it is, like I said, it's a great movie, and it's also a famous song by Roy Orbison, but despite it being called Oh, Pretty Woman, and they do play it in the movie during the scene, when the shopping scene, clothes she's buying, and they play the song. And another version of Pretty Woman by some group, something like that, don't know who. But there you go. I mean, but if you have not seen this movie, again, please check it out. Please watch it because it's funny. It's good. I mean, there's no nudity in it, I wouldn't think. I mean, it is rated R and stuff. You know, if you're like you got children and stuff, I mean, whatever, but if you're not really a fan of nudity or whatever, but I don't know a reason why you would be, but still, please watch the movie. I mean, it's a great story. It's good. So there you go. And that's gonna wrap it up for this movie review. So I hope you all enjoyed this once again. It was a little bit hard to see me because of the glare outside because the sun is out. So that's better. So thank you all for watching this movie review. I hope you all enjoyed. Like, comment, subscribe. It is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. And you all take care. Thank you.